The world is changing and it's changing really fast. If you are curious, you will enjoy what SaaS did in the early 2000s. AI is going to do it now.
I'm super excited to be joined by Professor Bhagwan Chowdhry.
Roughly 10% of our class ends up being a founder or being related to entrepreneurship. For entrepreneurs, what might have required a team of 10 with AI, we only require a team of 2 or 3. Don't talk to people about mundane things. Ask them about deep things. Show curiosity, not just to talk. It's always a good idea to take one thing that you really like and go deep. For your own sake, not for anybody else. In networking, the number one thing that works is giving, not taking. What you're building has a market all over the world. So think beyond. Because a lot of people will say entrepreneurship is in Indian blood. Entrepreneurs can spring anywhere. You don't need to teach them.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Behind the Feature. Today on Feature Bites, I'm extremely excited and for two reasons. One, I'm sitting at my alma mater. I'm at ISB. This is the beautiful library that we have here. And secondly, I'm sitting with a professor, one of my favorites at ISB, who taught me finance, but I can tell you I learned much more than finance in my time at ISB. So I'm super excited to be joined by Professor Bhagwan Chowdhry. Professor has done actually his PhD from Chicago Booth, but he used to come down from the sunny state of UCLA to come and teach us. Today, he's very much at ISB. So anyone who's coming in, you're going to be extremely privileged, but more than anything, he heads iVentures, one of the coolest ventures that we have launched here at ISB. And so welcome to Behind the Future.
Thank you, Disha. I wanted to ask you that you learned finance and other things. What I wanted to ask you was, what do you remember, the finance or the other things?
I definitely remember all the worldly advice. So he gave us such amazing advice. And I think that's what stayed more with me, and that I think is more important at the end of the day. So, but today it's about you and for our listeners to get to know you. So first, I want to start with, can you share the entire, the thought process behind launching iVentures and what was the conception behind it?
Okay, so we call it iVenture at ISB.
Okay.
It's a sentence.
iVentures at ISB.
No, not ventures. iVenture at ISB.
Oh, iVenture at ISB.
And then it's followed by do you. I venture at ISB, do you? So the idea was we had dabbled in terms of a curriculum with entrepreneurship, but it was not the main focus. The main focus of most business schools is, you come and then you want to work for McKinsey and Google and Amazons of the world, and that's what you prepare. That's what we prepare you for. We realized that many of our alums started like that. They started with the McKinseys of the world, but they became entrepreneurs after 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So we noticed there is something in the DNA of ISB. Even the people we admit have the entrepreneurial spirit.
Right.
The first few batches, in fact, were entrepreneurs because ISB was brand new. Nobody knew what ISB was. We were trying to get people who otherwise would go to Wharton or Columbia, but these guys took a chance, and that's a trait of an entrepreneur. And 23 years later, we saw it in full swing. 11 unicorns at ISB founders. Roughly 10% of our class ends up being a founder or being related to some entrepreneurship. So we noticed that. I also have a feeling that this 10% is an underestimate.
I definitely think so. I feel like a much more bigger segment of my classmates are actually running their ventures.
But beyond the ones we have not captured, there are also what we call latent entrepreneurs. These are people who go home every day from their jobs at Google and Amazon and say, what the heck am I doing here?
Okay.
I want to do something of my own. So I call them latent entrepreneurs. And I think we need to bring them out of their latency and give them an opportunity to really try. So Dean Madan joined 4 years ago, and then he said exactly that to me. He said, I want entrepreneurship to be the main, it has to be the main course, not a side course.
Right.
So that's how we set up iVenture at ISB. So it combined everything we were doing, but we hired one of our alums, Sonia, who's a classmate, Sonia Kumar, and we have been at it since that time.
So currently, how does the entire application process work? If I want to apply for it, how do I go about finding it? What is the criteria that you look for?
So we have many programs at iVenture at ISB. Some of these programs are online. You don't need to be here.
Okay.
So we get people at various stages, either incubation, acceleration, and we usually advertise. We put it on our website. So there would be a health startup called iHeal, or women-related cohort called iWin, and we have done something in energy. So we keep publicizing it, and any of the startups can apply. So that's the program where you are, wherever you are. We intervene, we help you, and take your entrepreneurial adventure to the next level. But just recently, we started a new program, a dedicated program called iVenture Immersive, IVI. This program, I wanted to replicate the experience PGP students have.
Okay. So that's our flagship course for everybody. That's what I've studied and has transformed it.
And everybody calls that the MBA.
Right.
But the thing about ISB MBA was, you folks are here 24/7. You eat, breathe, drink, eat, everything on campus. And that experience is unique. So what I wanted to do was create a similar thing for entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So we call it immersive. So iVenture Immersive, I wanted to recreate this immersive experience of ISB. So these folks come and spend 6 months here. They're building.
They're stuck.
But they are with each other. They're talking to each other. They're meeting other PGP students.
Okay.
They're meeting alums. They're meeting other thought leaders that are coming to campus.
Wow.
So that's what this program is. Immersive. Have the experience of being at ISB, and the type of people you meet at ISB, the diversity is amazing. As you all know.
Yes.
So that's what I wanted to create here. That's how IVI was born.
So, Professor, today, when you're looking at the Indian ecosystem, what are some of the sectors that you do see emerging? And also, do you see a certain trend when you are picking the cohort for IVI?
Yeah. So, this was our first batch, and we were not sure, and we were agnostic, and we got people in all sorts of niches.
Okay.
Fashion, AI, health, what have you. So they're all over the place. And people have very creative ideas. And you might think, why didn't I think about that when you see these people trying this? So that's what we are seeing all over the place. But in a future iteration, the next batch, we are going to focus a little bit.
Okay.
Because now what we are seeing is we want to look at AI-enabled startups. So we know AI is everywhere.
Yes.
We are drinking it, we are breathing it. What SaaS did in the early 2000s, AI is going to do it now.
Right.
So we want to focus on that. So in the next batch, we are looking at people who are doing AI-enabled startup, particularly in health tech and climate. So we're trying to see that focus and see if that makes a difference. So we may do few cohorts which are diverse. We may do few cohorts which are focused, and we'll see how it falls.
So now that you have mentioned AI, for all of us, one is, yes, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I know that's one of the places. But when I'm doing my day-to-day job, how do you see our careers, evolving with the advent of AI coming?
You have to do it. It's every day something new comes out. That's the first thing I check in the morning. What's new in AI?
Right.
Absolutely. It is going to change the way we think and work. For entrepreneurs, the big deal is what might have required a team of 10 with AI, we only require a team of 2 or 3.
That's true.
In our daily lives, a lot of the drudge work, you can get AI to do it. We will not be able to give everything to AI. So AI is a tool, but a very, very powerful tool. And I think in 10, 20 years, we are going to say it's like electricity. Nobody says, do you use electricity in your job, right? We all do. I think we'll be doing AI every day.
And if I had to pick on 3 skills, whether I'm an early career professional or whether I'm someone who's been in my career for 15 years, what are the 3 skills that you think really matter in this current world that we're going to see evolve?
So, number one, I don't know if it's a skill, it's a trait, it's curiosity.
Okay.
The world is changing and it's changing really fast. If you are curious, first of all, you will enjoy it because it's learning. Despite what we have all said about learning is actually enjoyable. It gives you that kick and learn something new. I think if you're curious and keep your eyes open, that's will change the way we interact with the world. New ways of learning, new ways of interacting. And it doesn't have to be necessarily what you're doing. I think you have to be open to what other people are doing. A kind of sincere curiosity. I mean, this may even change the way you talk to people, I'm an introvert. So I find parties boring as hell. I mean, I just cannot. But I learned this trick. I learned this trick from my wife, Swati. Don't talk to people about mundane things. Ask them about deep things.
Okay.
Show curiosity, not just to talk. And I have learned so much from this. So when you meet somebody, what are you doing? It should be a question, what are you doing? Like, and you're not even listening.
For the sake of asking.
Right? And somebody says, I quit my job. Show curiosity. You quit your job. Come on. You were getting 2 crores. Why did you quit your job? I mean, that curiosity will not only interest the other person, but it will change you because you're learning. In the new world, it's all about curiosity. And the second thing, in terms of professional thing, is it's always a good idea to take one thing that you really like and go deep. Become an expert for your own sake, not for anybody else, for your own sake. You will see how that transforms you. You take one thing and say, okay, my God, it's hard, but I'm going to go deep into it until I get comfortable. So that's been my advice to my students all the time.
So you're more of a specialist than a generalist.
No, I am a generalist. I'm curious about everything. But I take at least 1 or 2 things which are hard and take it head on. It's a challenge to myself. And I take to me that, for me, that works.
Okay. And any third piece? So we've mentioned curiosity, we've mentioned go deep.
And the third thing is interacting with other people. I'm an introvert, but interacting, I don't necessarily mean
do you mean networking?
Talk.
The favorite word at ISB?
Yeah, I think it means networking, but the networking has a bad connotation that people think of networking as kind of selfish. You're building your Rolodex. No, if you think of network as an opportunity to see other people's lives as they really are,
right,
it will transform you. Because we have only one life to live, right? But there are so many other people. They have their own lives, they have their stories. And what better way? I mean, novels do the same thing. The reason we need novels and we are hooked to is because it gives you a chance to go into somebody else's life and start living it vicariously a little bit. And I think if you look at networking that way, it will transform you.
That's actually a very beautiful thought. And you're right, like a lot of people like, oh, we're just doing networking for the sake of networking. I think it definitely has to be more from a curious mindset that you have.
Yeah. And be ready to give. In networking, the number one thing that works is giving, not taking. So you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to go and ask a few people about what they can do for me.
No.
Try it for a month, the opposite.
What can I do for you?
I'm going to networking. Whoever I meet, I'm going to help them with one thing, one contact, one idea, one connection to change everything. Karma is a beautiful thing. The more you give, the more comes back to you.
Professor, I'm going to now kind of dwell into, you've now seen so many startups. What is the one thing that you see in entrepreneurs and you think they do successfully, especially in terms of product thinking?
So, yeah. So you see, a lot of people will say entrepreneurship is in Indian blood, right? Merchants and so on and so forth. It is true. It is in our blood, so to speak. But the kind of entrepreneurship we are trying to inculcate is you start with a small idea, but try and make it big. A lot of the usual entrepreneurs just stay in the small circle. I think what we are trying to do here is asking people to think a little bigger, right? So let's say I'm an artisan, okay, and I sell locally. Well, why do you only sell locally? Maybe what you're building has a market all over the world. So think beyond that scaling of startups. That's what a business school is good at, right? So entrepreneurs can spring anywhere. You don't need to teach them,
Right.
But if you take those people and give them a few tools, they can think beyond. They can take this one idea and say, where else can it apply, right? So, say my other geographies, other use of that product. That's the thinking. And I think the product thinking should not be narrow. It should be, what else can it do? What will be the next step? And that part there takes a little bit of work.
So, Professor, do you have a favorite story, from the current cohort, especially in terms of the innovation and the enterprising, startup founders that you're seeing in India that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah. So all my students are my favorite. They're my babies. Okay. So I won't pick one.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what the entrepreneurs are doing. They are beginning to make connections. So they think they are making a product. After coming here, they realize that no, it's not just making a product, it's also combining other things. Hey, if this is a product and the customer is having a little bit of difficulty, can I arrange financing for the same customer? Can I arrange the next step for that customer? So starting to see the customer's need as an end-to-end thing opens up possibilities. And in fact, entrepreneurship is exactly that. You see, it's not like you see a need and you go and fill it. I mean, that's entrepreneurship too, but I call that the entrepreneurship, the small A. The big entrepreneurship is, here's a product, here is some other need, here is some other constraint. Can I put them all together?
Right.
This may involve even changing the law. So you go and sit in Delhi and talk to bureaucrats. We had one entrepreneur who told me about how it took him 2 years to change the law. Some other people said, I'm having difficulty because the capex required, the capital expenditure required is too big. I said, if it's a good product, is it positive NPV? We use that language in MBA, positive. Is it a good product?
Yeah.
He says it's a good product. I said, then why don't you arrange the financing? Okay. And then he started thinking, wow, yes, this is not just a product, it's product plus financing plus maybe insurance. So you see, it's the connections. And I think the entrepreneurs who are ultimately the most successful are those who can see each one of these difficulties
Right.
and remove them. I think that's the entrepreneurship that I want to encourage here.
And what do you think are some of the challenges that you see startups in the Indian ecosystem facing here?
Yeah. So the ecosystem is important. We throw this word around, but it is very important.
I think it's extremely hard.
There
for
is a reason why Silicon Valley succeeds. And yes, the ecosystem is important. For Indian mindset, the hardest thing to do is to learn how to take risks, because most of us are not used to it.
That's true.
right? There are some who are used to it. If their families are in business, they're kind of used to it. Most of us look for safety. Job acha milna chahiye, right?
I should get my feedback, which at the end of the month.
Yeah. But entrepreneurship is all about taking risks. And you don't have to risk your life. It's the attitude of taking risks, failing. I'm not trying to romanticize failures, but it's failing and then getting up and doing it differently. That part is not so much there in our mindset. We don't want to take things that might fail, so we sort of, stay back. And we know that unless you try, it doesn't work. So this also works for dating, by the way. If you don't take risks, you're not going to get dates. If you're not going to get dates, forget. So same idea.
That is my professor.
Little. You have to take a chance, fail. In other words, be afraid. Not be afraid of falling down.
Is that the one piece of advice you give to all of your...
Absolute. Everybody. In fact, I say, not just learn from failures, that's kind of a cliche, this thing. I said, feel what it is like to fail. That feeling of, it didn't work and, your heart sinks. And then you go and say, what do I need to do next time to not fail as badly or fail differently? That requires work. My wife is a therapist and she does this in relationships. Same idea applies in entrepreneurship. I think entrepreneurship and relationships are very similar.
I think you also said that about finance and relationships being very similar. So I definitely love that.
Yeah.
I think this is the parts which I feel like you know how to talk to us and you know how to connect with us. That's actually a question I want to ask you. I get this. It's important to take risk and everything. But at the end of the day, you should also know how to sell your idea, right, Professor?
Absolutely.
What are some of the tips how do you become a great storyteller? You're one of the best storytellers and you capture us for like 60 minutes without us.
So the key word there is story. I don't know how many times I've told people who make a pitch is that your pitch has to start with a story. Okay. Because we as humans connect to stories. We don't connect to facts, right? Doesn't mean we should not pay attention to facts.
Right.
We use computers. We calculate stuff. Finally, dikhna padta hai ki EMI kya hoga. We need all of this. But to get the first hook, it has to connect at the emotional level. And that's where stories are important. And there's something else about the story. It's not just that you're telling a nice story and people relate to it. If you can explain what you're doing in a simple way, in a story, it means you have understood. We had this blinder that I think I know this. I think I know my product. I think I know my tech. Until I tell you, please explain it to me. And then you get lost in kind of details. It's because you haven't internalized yourself. You haven't understood it yourself. I always tell people, you should be able to have a pitch so that if you have a chance of only 30 seconds in the elevator, you can tell the main story. Sometimes you'll have 2 minutes, sometimes you'll have 5, sometimes you have 10. But you should be ready to tell your story even in 30 seconds if you had to. And the second trick I'll tell you is, a lot of people memorize these things and say, it doesn't work. If you can really tell your story, see if I ask you Hindi mein bataiye, and if you can tell the story or not. Punjabi mein bataiye, aapki jo language hai usmein bataiye, ya na Marathi mein bataiye. If you can tell your story in more than one language that you're comfortable with, then you got it. This is the thing you can practice. You can actually try.
So you're saying practice is the key.
Practice is indeed.
But also internalize what
Internalize. I'll tell you, people ask me, I've been a professor, a teacher all my life. And people ask me, oh, you must love teaching. And they're shocked to hear the answer is no. I mean, look, I like teaching a little bit, but not so much. What I really like about teaching is it's the best way to learn.
That's true.
It is the best way to learn. And I am telling your viewers, if you are ever afraid of something, that I don't understand it,
What did you?
commit yourself that you're going to teach it to another person. Everything will change. I have done this in my life several times. When I take up a new topic, I first make a commitment. I usually go to my dean and say, can I teach this course? Before I have prepped the course. And they say, yes, you're teaching in a year. Now I'm stuck, I'm committed. And I realize it takes a lot of time to take these ideas, which I think I understand, but until I can explain it to you in simple terms, with a story, with a parable, and then put the numbers on it, I haven't really understood it myself.
Wow. Any last piece of advice for all our listeners?
I think we are living in one of the greatest times in our history.
Okay.
In 1440, we got printing press. That changed everything, right? Things that were there only with the elite became available to everybody. It took almost 1,000 years, and then we got internet. Now we don't always have to go and look things in hard form. We can get it on internet. The third phase is going to be the teacher will come to you. The tutor can come home to you. It still won't be quite a teacher, but it will, this opportunity we have to bring the entire world's knowledge in a way that anybody can consume it in a meaningful way has never been there. So we talk about shortages of teachers in India.
Yeah.
We have 1.4 billion people, so we need lots of teachers. You don't need every teacher to be an expert, because the best class could still be taught by a Stanford professor. But if I can take that video and explain it by watching it, so I become kind of like a teaching assistant, suddenly you can multiply the number of teachers in the whole world. Now bring in an AI tutor. You can go to billions of people, okay? But still, I'm still a little bit of a Luddite. I don't think it's going to be AI alone. I think it's AI with a human, right? AI-enabled human can do much more than AI alone or human alone. So I am very optimistic that we will finally be able to educate billions in India using the new AI tools and skill them.
I mean, this is wonderful, Professor. Yesterday also we had Bobby Down. He said everyone's going to have an AI companion. I don't think, and that's the future that we're moving towards. But there's also the entire ethical and moral responsibility. I did see a lot of parents in the news who were really worried. It's in my head. It's almost like I used to remember phone numbers. Now that I have a mobile phone, I don't.
Yeah.
What if someone's doing the thinking for me? Why will I even use my own mind? Isn't that scary at times?
No, I don't think other people are going to do the thinking for you. They are going to help you to get your neurons fire faster.
Yeah.
So they will help you think better, differently. I think the best thing AI does is try this kind of brainstorming. Or you say, just teach me, and you will be surprised how good it is. So don't look for answers. Look for nudges.
Okay.
So to me, AI is a good friend. My good friends hallucinate, by the way.
Very true.
So does AI.
Yeah.
So don't take it too serious. It's going to hallucinate, but it is going to nudge you and put you in directions that you didn't think about. Ultimately, it's going to be you
Right.
who will have to make sense of what you're getting. But I think these new tools can bring information now in a way that was never possible before.
No, I think I love this thing that use it more for nudging and not to giving you the answers.
Yeah.
Very much the way you use a friend.
Yeah.
They'll guide you,
Yeah.
but it's at the end of the day that you have to find your answer.
That's right. And sometimes they won't tell you the right thing. Okay. So I tell you about the human part, why the human part is important,
Yes.
why we still need a human in terms of. So the teacher may not be an expert in computer science. So they can say, I'll take this video and make it. But we have great need to connect to humans. It's the trust issue. When you have a teacher you trust, it changes everything because information is vast. You don't know what is right and what is wrong, right? So textbook the internet, their goal is to give you everything. But everything means you can start drowning in it. But a good teacher says,
This is
you need this, you don't need this. So it's kind of like what happens in therapy. In therapy, you connect with your therapist and you start to trust her or trust it. It is called transference, right? And I think that is what is needed. So I don't think it's going to be AI alone. We'll need the human touch, and together we can make it work.
Thank you so much, Professor, for taking out time on Sunday morning for mindless.
For me, all days are the same.
And I love your energy, and I'm so glad to be back.
And I'm so happy to see you back on campus. Please come back again. Come back often.
Definitely. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you for joining us on Behind the Feature. If you've liked the episode, do like and subscribe. We come up with new episodes every second and fourth Thursday of the month. So do keep a lookout for some really cool, awesome guests coming up next on the show.